Hey everyone, welcome to our way too early 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes predictions video. So we're going to be looking over the 2024 college football season schedule for the Buckeyes, seeing what games we think they're going to win and which games we think they're going to lose. Obviously, spring practice is still going on right now. Buckeyes have had a lot of changes on the roster, on the coaching staff, and the Big Ten is a completely different conference than it was last year as well. As we know, the Big Ten and the SEC, they've been slugging it out over the last few years to which one is the best conference in all of college football. Michigan won the national championship last season, so the Big Ten can say that as of right now, they are on top. But it's really close. Buckeyes have one of the best rosters, one of the most rounded rosters in all of college football. They're going to have a pretty tough schedule, though, because the Big Ten's getting tougher. They're bringing in Oregon, they're bringing in Washington, they're bringing in the Bruins, they're bringing in USC. So the regular conference schedule is going to be getting tougher. No game is a given as of right now. But let's go ahead and get things started. Hit that like button and subscribe, and let's take a look at our Buckeyes schedule. Well, let's first break down some of the changes that the Buckeyes had coming into this season. So Ryan Day finally, truly gave up play calling duties. Who did he give them up to? None other than Chip Kelly, who was the head coach for UCLA. He, on his own, stepped down as the head coach, wants to only coach offense. He's one of the best offensive play callers in college football history. Why do I say that? Because he helped change the game and brought the spread offense mainstream. A lot of that came from Chip Kelly. He's one of the OGs, basically, using spread play calling. He made it normal. He's the one that made college football slow down the play clock on the defensive side on the ball for substitutions. That all goes back to the Oregon Duck days of the early, the mid-2000s, around 2010 or so. That all originates from his style of play calling, and he's inheriting a loading roster. This is a really good team from last season. The only thing that held them back last season was the quarterback position. That was Kyle McCord. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but he just didn't have it. Ohio State, they're used to having a Heisman contending type of play at the quarterback position, and he just wasn't bringing that. But they're bringing in Will Howard, who was one of the top transfer quarterbacks. He's coming out of Kansas State. He brings a more mobile factor with an offensive coordinator who's okay running the quarterback. Usually the Buckeyes, Ryan Day did not want mobile quarterbacks. Justin Fields could run, but he didn't want him running very much, only if he was forced out of the pocket. But now you have Will Howard. Chip Kelly's going to be fine with letting him run. There's going to be a lot of RPO. They're going to be spreading the field out. They're still going to be a pass-happy team because, as we know, Ohio State for the last few years has been sending a lot of wideouts to the NFL. But the quarterback position, they're deep. They have Will Howard. They have Saban. They have Aaron Nolan. Looking at running back, they have Travion Henderson. They have Quinton Junkins transferred over from Mississippi. So Ohio State recruits well. They own the portal. They have Hayden there at wide receiver. Again, they're loaded. They have Egbuka. They have Innis, Rogers, Tate, Graham, Hayes, Ballard, Otwin. They have Jeremiah Smith, the number one wide receiver coming out of high school last season. And when you're looking at the defensive side, Jim Knowles, one of the best defensive coordinators, completely overhauled. They're going to have a top 10 offense this year, but they're going to be bringing in a returning top 5 defense. All of the starters coming back. This is a legit team looking to get to the playoff, looking to get to the national championship first time under Ryan Day. So they kick things off Saturday, August 31st with the Akron Zips. Obviously, we know this game is not going to be close. It's going to be a blowout. This is an in-state game. They are playing another Ohio team, but this is a warm-up game. New quarterback. You have Quinton Junkins in. You have a new coordinator. This is them basically just slow walking the season. Everyone's getting used to the play calling, getting used to the schemes, getting used to the playbook. This gives them the opportunity to slowly build up from the foundation, get a couple wins, get the offense rolling. We know that the defense is going to be talented. A top 5 defense once the season ends. They were number 2 last season in points per game and total yards given up per game. They just have to get the quarterback position right, and everything else is built. That's going to be a win. They're starting out the season 1-0. Next week, Saturday, September 7th, you have the Western Michigan Broncos. Obviously, also, that's going to be a win. The schedule does get tougher later on, but Ohio State has a really easy first half of the schedule. They have a couple cupcakes lined up. Like I was saying, that fits them perfectly because they've had a lot of changes. Quarterback, running back, offensive coordinator. This is giving them the reps to get warm, so once they get into in-conference play, they're already rolling. So that's going to be a win. They're going to be 2-0 after they beat Western Michigan. Then they have a bye week September 14th, and then September 21st, they have the Marshall Thundering Herd. Obviously, there's really not much to say here. Marshall's going to get steamrolled. The defense is going to dominate them. All three of these games, when they beat the Zips, that's probably going to be like a 38-3 game. And Western Michigan, probably like a 40-7 game. Marshall, they're going to win this game. 45-50-10 maybe. So the offense is going to be getting better each week. Will Howard, as long as he gets the starting job, which he should as of right now, he's going to be dominating. Look for them to have a way more mobile quarterback. Then they start getting into conference play, but they're warmed up at this point. Saturday, September 28th at Michigan State Spartans. Now, looking at last season's team, obviously that's kind of a laughable that would actually be a tough game. But Michigan State has a completely different team right now. So they're bringing in Smith, who was the head coach at Oregon State. He's bringing in the 5-star number 1 quarterback from last year's class, transferring with him to Michigan State. He could very well be the starter coming into the regular season. But Michigan State is not going to challenge the Buckeyes. Will Howard's been around. He's been in a lot of competitive conference games for Texas and Oklahoma. He's been on the big stage before. He's won conferences before. This is not going to be a competitive game, even though Michigan State will be better. They have to completely rebuild the roster. It's a complete rebuild. They're nowhere near the level of, obviously, the Buckeyes, who right now have a top 3 roster in all of college football. So that's going to be a win, and I think it's going to be a dominant win. I'm saying like a, not dominant, but maybe like a 38-17. Then after that, Saturday, October 5th, still in conference here, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes. Never overlook the Hawkeyes. Ferentz, obviously, this team is always going to have a top 5 defense. A top 5 defense in all of college football. But they're going to have a bottom 5 offense. It just is what it is. Their offense is a complete joke. They're awful. They were having over-unders of 25 last season. That's pathetic. They're never going to be good on offense. Ferentz hired his son to be the offensive coordinator. He's now been let go. But Ferentz has set the standard that he doesn't care about offense. Everybody knows that. It's not like they're going to come out with some modern-day air raid spread offense. That's not going to happen. They're just going to replace Kirk Ferentz's son with another version of Kirk Ferentz's son. Very conservative. They're going to hope to win on special teams and defense. That'll get them a really good record because they're going to have a top 5 defense every single season, but their offense is still going to be a joke. It's been in the 120s ranked for the last 2 seasons. Completely pathetic. They're not going to do good this game. I feel really bad for their defense. They're on the field the whole game, and yet still they finish the season with a top 5 defense every single season. Look for this game to be, the defense will keep it close first half, and then they'll get tired, and the Buckeyes will start to pull away. Because the Buckeyes can beat you multiple ways. Passing, running the ball right now. They have 2 stacked running backs. They have Henderson, they have Quinton Junkins, and they also have a mobile quarterback. So that offensive line, they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on defenses. Look for the Buckeyes to win this game. I'm going to say like a 30-10 type game. So as of right now, the Buckeyes are 6-0. What's that? 5-0. Going into one of the best games of the season, Saturday, October 12th. This is probably going to be a game day game. You're going to have the Oregon Ducks. This is going to be a top 10 matchup, possibly even a top 5 matchup at this point. Because the Buckeyes are going to come into the season ranked, 1-3. Some are in there. Pick where you want them to fall, but they're going to be a 1-3 team. And the Ducks. This is a stacked team, stacked roster, dominated the transfer portal, dominates recruiting, just like the Buckeyes, who dominate the portal and also dominate recruiting. The Ducks are going to have a top 10 offense. They had a top 10 offense last year. They had a top 10 defense last year. So this also is one of the more rounded teams in all of college football. They had a Heisman-level quarterback last season, but they're bringing in Gabriel from Oklahoma, who is a Heisman-level quarterback this season. They have wide receivers. They have running backs. They can run, throw. They play good defense. Welcome to the Big Ten now. Their schedule is going to be really tough, but this is going to be a really fun game. This is anyone's game because whoever loses this game still has the possibility of rematching in the Big Ten Championship, who's now going to be taking the top 2 teams to play in the conference championship. So no matter who wins, who loses here, these teams could potentially have a rematch either way. both of these teams could also still make the playoffs. Don't forget now, 12 teams get in the playoffs. So even if you lose here, it's not the end of the season. Even if you lose here and lose in the conference championship, you could still conceivably get into the college football playoff right now. But this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to, as of right now at this point, go with the Buckeyes to win this game. They have, to me, it is the defense that's going to make the difference. They're going to have a top 5 defense. The Ducks are going to have a top 20 defense. But if you match these teams up, the offenses could easily cancel each other out. Ducks have a very good defense, but Ohio State's defense is extremely good. Top 5. They're going to have a top 3 defense. It's going to be a really good defense. They're probably only going to be giving up 10 points per game, maybe 250, 260 offensive yards per game. They're just going to put a lot of pressure on Gabriel. Gabriel, great quarterback, Heisman-level quarterback, but I don't think they're going to be able to match blow for blow with Ohio State. But this is still a playoff caliber team. Ducks could potentially win it all this season, but I think the Buckeyes will get them the first shot here. Could the Ducks get them in the Big 10 championship now that they've played them once and they kind of know what kinks that they have to iron out? That's completely different because whenever you have a rematch, anything can happen because now the team knows what they did wrong and what they need to change. But I think Ohio State, Chip Kelly on the roster as a coach is a huge advantage. You have a head coach as your offensive coordinator, someone who could take a lot of pressure off of Ryan Day, but someone Ryan Day trusts to give up play calling to. Ryan Day, even though he named other guys the offensive coordinator, he was still calling plays because he didn't trust them. He's going to trust Chip Kelly. He has someone he can completely give the offense to and not even have to look at. So the Buckeyes are going to take this game. Next game, then they're off. They have another bye week. Then they have the Nebraska Cornhuskers October 26th. This is not a game to look over. Why do I say that? Matt Rule is rebuilding the Cornhuskers. They obviously have a 5-star quarterback coming in here. Nebraska, their biggest issue last season was their offense. They did not have a good offense. They were averaging about 25 points per game. That's definitely not going to cut it these days. But they did finish the season with a top 25 defense. Even though they had to rely on their defense held strong the whole season. So that shows the building blocks that Matt Rule is building on. Laying a foundation. This team is going to run. They're going to be really physical. They have a young 5-star quarterback coming in. He's not going to light things up this season. But Nebraska was better last year than they were previously, and they're going to be even better this season. I'm looking at Nebraska as a 7 to 8 win team. Do not scoff at that. Matt Rule, a very good coach, but he's very good at rebuilding teams. He did it at Temple. He did it at Baylor. He will do it at Nebraska. Just give him time, but they're not going to be able to match the Buckeyes just yet. Buckeyes are too good this season. The roster's too good. Even though the Cornhuskers are a legitimate team, they will make a fight of it. First, second quarter, but they just don't have the strength, the stamina as of right now to go 3 and 4 quarters. So look at the Buckeyes to win this one. I'm going to say, they'll pull away second half. It'll probably be like a 34-13 type game, 34-14 game. And with the Ducks, that's going to be a close game. I don't think that's going to be a blowout at all. That game's probably going to even be a shootout. I could see like a 30-27 type game, 30-24. But it'll be a one-possession game. So the Buckeyes right now, they're sitting pretty good. How many wins is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0. Then after that, another really good game, Saturday, November 2nd. This could be another game that could potentially be a game day game at Penn State Nittany Lions. If Penn State's smart, they'll have this as a whiteout. They'll play it at night. Will they do that? I don't know. I think last year they played in the afternoon, which was kind of dumb. But anyways, Penn State, they're going to be a top 10 team. James Franklin always recruits well. They got rid of the offensive coordinator, Drew Aller, 5-star quarterback. They can run, they can throw. Offense was the problem last season. They just weren't going vertical. They didn't have any threats on the outside positions to be able to throw the ball down the field. But they had a top 10 defense. The Big Ten is the best defensive conference. They have a lot of really good defenses. They basically owned the top 10 for top 10 defenses outside of maybe Georgia. But Penn State, do not overlook them. Their defense is going to keep them in games. Had they had a halfway decent offensive coordinator, they'd probably beat the Buckeyes last season. The game was really close. Ohio State pulled away at the very end, but it was due to Penn State couldn't get a first down. They could not get a first down, but that's also a testament to how good the Buckeyes defense is in return. Penn State lost their defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz. He's now the head coach at Duke. but they're going to have a really good play, a really aggressive linebacking core. They're going to get a lot of sacks. It's going to be really hard to run on Penn State. If anyone can do it, it's the Buckeyes. Henderson, Quinton Junkins, Will Howard. They have the running ability there. They have a good O-line. I have this game being very close first half. It's in Penn State's home, but Ohio State again pulls away second quarter. The second half. That's where they make the difference. I have them winning this one probably like a 24 or 28 to 17 to 20 game. They'll win about a 1 or 2 possession game. Next week, that's Saturday, November 9th, they have to do Purdue Boilermakers. Obviously, they went nowhere last year. They won 4 to 5 games. They're probably going to be in the same position as of right now. It's not so much a testament on them. They had a new coach last season. He's coming in for his second year here. He tried to have an air raid type of offense. It's just the Big Ten is so deep. It's really hard to rebuild and bring these smaller market teams into prominence here. And the Big Ten only got more difficult with the elite schools that they brought in this season. Washington, USC, Bruins, and Oregon. It's going to be really tough here. Look for Purdue to just honestly get steamrolled. This is probably like a 40-7 game. And then after that, you have the Buckeyes sitting at 9-0. You have Saturday, November 16th at Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern, surprising season last season. Obviously, they fired Fitzgerald. The team picked up the slack, had a dominant season. They circled the wagons, came together. I think they finished last year with 8 or 9 wins. I'm not predicting that to happen this season. Props to them for what they accomplished last year, but I don't think Lightning's going to hit the same spot twice. I have Ohio State dominating this game. This was a horrible game last season, a complete joke. It raised a lot of red flags on Comacord and Ryan Day's play calling that game. It was really bad, really sloppy. The game was close to the fourth quarter, completely low scoring, horrible game. Should not have been close. Look for the Buckeyes to want revenge, and they'll want to separate this team from last year's team and show how much better they are. So I think they're going to have their foot on their throat and have their foot on the gas this game and be trying to score every single possession. And we know Chip Kelly loves to move fast, loves to score every time, loves to run the score up. He's not going to go soft here. I have the Buckeyes winning this game probably like a 40 or 45 to 14. Then the Indiana Hoosiers, November 23rd. This game's not going to be close. Hoosiers have had a couple seasons that they were pretty decent the last few years. But the last 2 years, they've been pretty sloppy. They're not going to be any better. They played well in this game last season, first half. Second half got completely steamrolled. They were a tough physical team last season, but they nowhere have the talent on the level of these top, 5 or 6 Big Ten schools who are just extremely talented. There's a lot of teams at the top. Then there's all these bottom level teams that, they try to fight and keep the game close as long as they can to prove a point, and that's great. But the Buckeyes, their roster is extremely good this season. So I have the Buckeyes winning this one really good. The only reason that this game could not be as much of a blowout is obviously the Buckeyes pulling their starter second half because Michigan's the next week. You don't want to take the chance of anyone getting hurt. You want everyone to be healthy, get a good lead, pull the starters, play it safe, go into the Michigan game fully rested. And that's what brings us to our final regular season game, Saturday, November 30th. The big game itself, Michigan Wolverines, and this is going to be in Ohio State. If there was ever a time for Ryan Day to beat Michigan, this is it. Harbaugh's gone. Michigan is the defending champs. There's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day here. He could not beat Harbaugh the last 3 years. It was pathetic. It was bad. I think Michigan's going to be really good this season, but to be taking a slight step back. Jerome Brown, he's a little bit of a conservative play caller. He's now the head coach. Harbaugh's gone. J.J. McCarthy's gone. They still have Edwards at running back, but they lost a lot of pieces on offense. They lost a lot of pieces on defense, but this is still a very experienced older team because they do keep their players 3 or 4 seasons, every single player. They even have some 5-year players, but Michigan's not to be overlooked. Obviously, this is quite possibly the biggest rivalry in all of college football, so it's going to be a slugging game. They're going to be slugging it out. They're going to be physical. Michigan's still a really good team, could still potentially make the playoffs, but this season, to me, they're not on level playing ground. I think the Buckeyes are the way better team this season. They have a lot of experience. They're going to be bringing in a really good offense still, loaded with playmakers that can throw, run, one of the best wide receiver cores in the whole country, led by Egbuka. And then you're also going to have a top 5 defense probably in this game the number 2 or number 3 ranked defense back-to-back seasons. Michigan's defense will still be really good, but their offense is probably going to take a step back. Not saying that they had some great offense last season, but they're not going to be as good because they're losing a lot of their big-name playmakers that have been there for a really long time. This isn't a 1 or 2 year starting team. These guys are starting for 4 years. So when they leave, obviously, that's a little bit of a void. So now those younger players who haven't had to play starting in forever are now the starters, and the process restarts. Jerome Brown, he'll get everything right, but this is his first year as the full-time head coach. So just give him some time here. I think Ryan Day finally gets it off his shoulders, finally beats Michigan, so everyone who's calling for his head can finally let off once. And I have Ohio State winning a game here. A very physical game, pulling away at the very end of the fourth quarter. But I have the Buckeyes winning this one. They're not going to blow it out at all because Michigan's defense will be good. I'm going to say maybe like a 30-20 game. You know, they'll get that second possession win at the very end that kind of pulls it out of reach for the Wolverines. But it's going to be a really good game and could potentially also, again, be the Big Ten game. This is a pretty tough schedule because you have Michigan, you have Penn State, you have Nebraska, you have Oregon, you have Iowa. So you have a lot of teams who could potentially be ranked there. But they also don't have to play a lot of the teams in the Big Ten. So pretty easy first half of the schedule, but a difficult second half. But I actually have the Buckeyes finishing this season 12-0. It's not very often that I pick a team to go undefeated. But if there was ever a time for Ohio State, this is it. If there's a letdown game there, I just don't think it's going to happen with Michigan this season. But you always have to watch that as a red flag because it's a big rivalry game and they are still playing a really good team who's going to be ranked very high. This could finally maybe be the year Penn State pulls it off. I don't see it, but that's one to watch. And obviously Oregon. Even if Ohio State loses to Oregon and finishes 11-1, they could be playing Oregon in the Big Ten Championship and have their chance to get the rematch and beat them. But even if they don't, they could still make the playoffs either way. Even if they lose to Oregon twice, they would be 11-2. They're still going to get in the playoffs this year because 12 teams are getting in. But if Ohio State beats Oregon and rematches Oregon in the Big Ten Championship, they're now the ones that have to be on guard. The Ducks saw what didn't work, and they're going to switch up the game plan. Dan Lanning, very smart. There's going to be a really well-coached team, a good offense, a good defense. Do not overlook them 2 times because they could beat Ohio State, take the Big Ten, and Ohio State is now 12-1. They're still going to get the playoffs, so it really honestly doesn't matter. But you obviously want that bye week going into the playoffs. But I have the Buckeyes finishing the season, going undefeated, going to the Big Ten Championship Saturday, December 7th, and potentially beating whoever they play, being 13-0 going into the playoffs.